Welcome to the Forever Classic Podcast, the show seeking enlightenment through video games, films, and other geek culture. I'm Alex McCumbers, and today, tarnished ye rise, it's time for a big old deep dive discussion on Elden Ring. I brought two guests. We had like 5 or 6 planned, but a couple of them fell through. That's fine. We'll see Joe again on another show, and if you want more of me and my buddy Ben Philbin, check out the Black Ice podcast. Just search for that on your favorite podcatchers. But I have with me here David, a good friend of mine who I've been going to movies with and kind of hanging out with in Minnesota. Great guy, excellent chef. So Dave, please say hello.
How's it going, everybody?
And then, of course, we've got Justin here from the Here's Johnny podcast, a horror show that is very worth your time, and who's also a writer in the video game journalistic space, and I believe has a new role. So, Justin, please say hello.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here again, actually. It's been a while since the last, Fantasy Critic League last year, I believe.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the last time you were on, and that's it.
Me too. That whole time I was thinking about it. But it's been a long time. But as you mentioned, I'm one half of the Here's Johnny podcast. My other host, Larry, was on the Pokemon podcast. I'm not sure if that's it yet. Okay.
Not yet, but it will be.
Okay. Yes, it'll be out before this. So, and then, I write I do contributing writing for Forever Classics. I'm a semi-full-time reviews writer for a small Nintendo indie website, nintendolink.com, and then I am now as of last week, I'm a weekly editorial writer for DreadXP.
DreadXP is cool stuff. I've been following them since they started doing the little indie collections on Steam. I haven't played any of them, but I have 4 of them.
So funny story, a year ago they had actually given me one of them just to cover it.
Sure.
And I may have forgotten to do it. And then that was, I didn't want to bring that up when I was talking to them about writing for them. But yeah, that's
It certainly does, man. As somebody who's been reviewing games for a long time, we really struggle with managing time, especially those of us who are doing this either as volunteers or as part-time. It's hard to commit to these sort of things sometimes.
Yeah, it's wild. When I first started doing Here's Johnny, it was okay, I watch a movie or play a game and then I talk about it, whatever. That's nothing. It's easy, right? When you're doing just one and then something else and then something else and then something. And now I'm okay, well, I've got 4 things to do this week and I have to beat Elden Ring and It's holy shit. Okay, where am I finding the time for this?
Yep, it's a puzzle, man. I'm constantly swapping around schedules and doing this and that and staying up way too late. But there's always something to distract us, and one of my favorite distractions here recently has been the Marvel Cinematic Universe and going to see comic book films. Me and Dave just went and saw the Batman the other week, and that was pretty cool.
I saw the Batman on the weekend.
Completely dark movie of darkness that was only dark.
Yeah, that one wouldn't have worked on CRT, would it?
No, not at all.
It's a great movie, though. I actually also just saw it this weekend. Yeah.
That's something I'm excited to hear you talk about one of these days, because it's very much how I imagine Saw to be, because I haven't seen those movies.
So that's exactly what I brought up. It's the first half of that movie is basically a Saw movie. Yeah. And it's it is so entrenched in its thriller themes. That kind of goes off the deep end towards the latter half of it. But man, that first half is just
that movie's fascinating to talk about. Maybe we'll get something together for that. Because we have covered movies in the past here on the Forever Classic podcast. When Thor Ragnarok came out, I think me and Zach sat down and talked a bunch about it. But we need to get back into movies. We have an entire show called the Zack Snyder Cut that is our Zack Snyder hosting a show talking about the directed movies of the actual Zack Snyder, the director guy. And that's a show that's been on my hard drive for a while because it's hard to find time for things. But I am going back into my legacy content and finding old interviews and things I can quickly put together. So the Snyder Cut podcast is certainly something on my list of things to edit and put out.
You know what? Zack Snyder did make a fantastic Dawn of the Dead. I will say that.
He did do it. There's a lot of his movies that are actually pretty good, and we talked about that in that show. My favorite so far that I can remember is The Guardians of Ga'Hoole, the 3D owl movie. That movie's great.
I've never heard of this movie.
I've never once.
What? Okay, so 3D movies are cool, right? This is the first 3D movie I remember going to see and being oh, 3D can do cool shit.
Interesting. Because the only thing I really know Zack Snyder for is obviously Evil Dead. He did that Sucker Punch movie, I think, and Watchmen, and the
Justice
The
League?
movie that everybody was freaking out about that he got like his cut for.
Yeah, the Justice League Snyder Cut, well, they call it something different. It's not actually called the Snyder Cut because that was more like a pop culture social media thing, which is why we're stealing that.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but that's a pretty cool little project. I recommend getting that and sitting down and watching it. It's like 4 hours long or some shit, but I think it's super entertaining.
Oh, that's a lot of time.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the
lot of
Batman,
time.
right? The Batman was right above 3 hours, and my favorite thing I've heard about it, like kind of echoed, is something that David also said during the Eternals.
It's an excellent, an excellent hour and 45-minute movie wrapped in an hour and 15 minutes of fluff.
Yep.
Yep.
I kind of agree, and I kind of love 3-hour movies. I'm on the fence about that one. But today's episode is all about probably one of the biggest, like, pop culture touchstones of this last video game generation. I imagine this will be the last, like, big hurrah for, like, Xbox One and PS4 owners. But Elden Ring came out a couple weeks ago, and it's all I can think about. So I just really wanted to like get you guys on here and just gush about this game for a little bit. So Justin, let's start with you. Like, for one, do you have like a background with Souls games? And what were you kind of hoping going into this particular one?
So I have a complicated history with Souls games. I am obsessed with video games. So basically anytime a new game comes out, good or bad, I try my best to try it.
Sure.
And this goes back to, when I was a teenager, basically when I had my first job, I was like, okay, buying video games basically with all that money. So, as Dark Souls would come out or, Bloodborne or Dark Souls 2 and 3 and all that, all the like Soulsborne-esque games like Neo and Neo 2, I would always, earlier on, I would obviously rent them and then I would buy them if I enjoyed them. And when rental stores went away, basically I would just buy them. And I always hated Souls games when I first tried them.
I feel like you tell this story in your guys' show too, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I do absolutely. Because the first time I tried these games, I was like, it's not for me. Like this isn't the type of gaming I enjoy. I want something just kind of like relaxing or over the top action. I don't want this like plotting, stamina based combat.
Right on.
Bullshit is what I probably would have called it back then. And then recently, I kind of forced Larry to play the first Dark Souls game, and something about it clicked with me hard. And I've basically been obsessed with the series for like the last year and a half. So I've obviously gone through and played Dark Souls, the remaster anyways. I skipped Dark Souls 2 because I played it for about an hour and then heard I should skip it because it's the bad one. Played Dark Souls 3, beat it, played and beat Bloodborne very recently, like maybe less than a month ago. Yeah, then Elden Ring came out and I was like, I had a feeling that this could go either way. It was either going to be basically the next step in the Soulsborne games and it's going to be amazing and it's going to be a game changer, or it's going to kind of flop because it was basically there was like a pressure cooker around it because it got announced and then we didn't hear anything for it for about like 2 years. So everybody was thinking it was canceled or something, they had to restart it or something had been going on with the project. But no, I think Miyazaki just like didn't talk about it because he has this like way about making these games and he's a master at his craft, really, and I think that comes through in this game.
Yeah, the team effort from Software is so multi-layered, but it does, and I think I've seen this in like interviews. A lot of it does have the like touch of Miyazaki. I've heard he's like kind of a terrible person to work for. So I've been told.
I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, which could go either way. Regardless, that team puts out extreme quality games. At least in the gameplay and the like player psychology of it all. One could argue that like some of the assets are like lacking and could be better, but at the end of the day, these games have always kind of felt massive to me. And so Elden Ring, when it came out and I started playing it, I'm like, oh, this is like far beyond what I expected, and I don't physically know how they did this.
Yeah, and it's wild too because like you hear people talk about Elden Ring and you hear them talk about how accessible it is. I wouldn't really call it accessible. I would say it's definitely more approachable than other Souls games just because it is a lot easier to... Usually in Souls games, there's like this whole weird system around summoning people and kind of getting help with bosses, where I think here is like, it's fantastic. Obviously, yes, the game just came out, so it's super easy to call in random people all over the place, but they've also introduced like these ashes elements to it. So you can... I basically found an ash a week ago that copies myself. So whatever build I am running, it copies that, and so there's basically I'm playing co-op with myself,
That's a
fighting
really
a boss.
good one. I need to go find that one down. I was just on the phone with my buddy Andrew at Marooners Rock. Shout out to what he does. He was like, "Yo, you got to go get that Mimic Ash. It's super good."
It's so good. Like, it's weird because it is attached to probably one of the easiest bosses.
Funny.
It's like, what's that? Sorry.
I said funny.
Yeah, it's weird because I mean, I think this game puts a very big hurdle at the start of the game with its first boss, and then it just kind of goes, okay, if you can beat that first boss, you can beat the game. Now go enjoy yourself and have fun.
Sure. And Dave, where did you kind of start with the Souls series?
I was going to say first, I get the sense that the game is kind of encouraging you to dig into exploration if you can't beat that boss.
Oh, for
Is
sure.
my
Absolutely.
initial sense is that like, what if you just, looked around a bit? For the Souls games, I have been playing them ever since I think Demon Souls. Demon Souls, I enjoyed that game a lot. I don't recall a ton about it. I just remember when the original came out, I want to say there was some kind of ring that helped prevent poison. I got to the poison swamp and I probably rage quit that game. That's my
Yes.
strong suspicion is that that's what happened. And for some reason, glutton for punishment that I am, I immediately picked up Dark Souls when it launched. And that game and like the series in general has been kind of the opposite of what I hear a lot of other people talk about. They've never been very stressful games for me. Like they're hard, sure, but that plotting aspect to it, that just like really methodicalness has always been something that pulled me into those games. And they kind of just, they're a game where I can load it up and just zen out. I know that I'm just going to be in the moment, in the game, slowly learning and slowly just pushing my way forward. And I've done that in all of them except for, I never played Sekiro, but all the Souls games and Bloodborne, I have that exact same relationship with. And they've just been astounding for that.
I totally agree with that idea of like being in the moment with these games because I think the way they're designed, they really like demand attention. And I think that's something that the Souls like genre in general has done really well with kind of capturing a similar feeling. Because I mean, the original games, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, they've gone on to inspire like countless indies and other projects to the point that it's absurd. It's a whole genre. Here pretty soon we're gonna get Lies of P, which is a Pinocchio puppet-esque kind of Bloodborne-like from like this random indie studio, and it looks super cool. We got Mortal Shell we've talked about on the show. Even Hollow Knight, Echoes Souls, like these games really are like a piece of pop culture that has gone far beyond what their original scope was. But so back in the day, I think this was high school, my friend Timmy was the only one who had a PS3. He used to play games with his dad, and so they would sit down and like do various exercises and stuff because he was like a wrestler, and so he'd go out on the porch, lift a little bit, come back in, they'd play some games, and that was just kind of their thing, right? But the big thing is they always played games on the hardest difficulty, so they were always kind of searching for like really tough games. And one day Timmy stops me at my locker and he says, "Hey, I've got this game that's like nothing I've ever played. It's called Demon Souls, and it's like, what if it was a like really meaningful Dungeons and Dragons dungeon delve, but it's hard as shit?" And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds kind of annoying." Like, and I didn't think much of it. But then Dark Souls came out, and it started becoming more and more synonymous with the way that I sit down and play games, because I think I eventually picked up like a cracked copy on PC or something. And then after like spending some time with it, and having somebody like that was good at the game explain to me what all these different systems meant, I ended up picking up like every single release From Software has done, including like the remasters and such. So I have like the PS3 copy of Dark Souls 2, which is very different from like the remastered version they did of the PS4 version. And Justin and I haven't played that one very much either. But what's funny is apparently there's a lot of Dark Souls 2 in Elden Ring.
Yeah, I hear people have basically called it Dark Souls 2 too.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's weird. I think you have to be you have to be in the right mindset to start a Souls game, but I think if you start it when you are in that mood or in the right mindset or whatever you want to call it, they just like, they really click with you. And I mean, right now is a great time because
Yes.
there's 4 or 5 of them now, right? So other than Elden Ring,
Right.
that you can, so I know for a fact when I'm done Elden Ring, if I don't restart it right away, I'm probably just going to go replay Dark Souls 1.
I think I'll jump into Demon Souls on PS5 and try to make more progress on it.
Oh,
Because that's a very
That game.
different feeling game, even though it like echoes a lot of what made Demon Souls great. It's essentially like an interpretation by Bluepoint, the like American, I believe they're mostly American studio that's like down in Texas somewhere. And so that game just like feels slightly different in some ways, in a really like cool, interesting way. And all of these games, I think, they all have strengths and weaknesses, but the main strength that I see is they really like envision a world and then play around with like tropes and such to the point where things like will feel familiar. And so things like, oh, blunt damage does more to skeletons, or if I use holy on a zombie, it'll like do more damage to it, right? That's like just kind of ingrained into RPG mechanics. It's ever since like Dungeons and Dragons and Final Fantasy. And they'll play with that in a really cool, meaningful way in Dark Souls, where if you like hit one with a club, it'll shatter, but then it might rebuild. And so it's just a really cool like take on fantasy. And they did the same thing with like H.P. Lovecraft and Bram Stoker's kind of world and vibe with Bloodborne. And then they did some really cool samurai stuff with Sekiro, which I've only played the beginning of, but I've seen a lot of it played. And it's a wonderful studio. And Elden Ring kind of has this really wild, almost Nordic-like sense to it. It's very European Nordic kind of thing. It's hard to explain sometimes in places, but it feels like all the cool things that From Software has been doing throughout their storied legacy of these games culminates in this one. Some of the performance could be better, but at the end of the day, the vision behind this title is truly astounding.
Man, so I do have to ask that. So have you come across like performance issues?
Yes, I am on PS5. And I have come into pop in, I've jumped in the air and had the game freeze for a bit. My character just hovers and then he immediately dies. These are all things that can be ironed out, obviously. I've seen like monsters, especially the big lions with the like sword paws. I've seen those guys like go through staircases and shit.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's weird to me that like, well, I shouldn't say weird. It's wild to me that like, so perfect example is like I haven't come across any of those issues. I've had a ton of network issues.
Yeah, I believe that.
But no, like I surprisingly, I haven't had the game crash on me.
Now, what sort of network issues have you been facing?
Oh, just the whole like for example, last night I was fighting a boss called the I'm trying to decide if I'm going to say the name or not.
No, go for it.
Okay, Godskin Duo.
Hey, that's what I thought.
It's called.
Well, not the duo, I think. I fought a big fat guy. Do you have to fight two of those? Okay, great.
It's the big guy and somebody else.
Okay, because I've got a story about the fat guy after you're done.
Oh man, this. So have you taken down Rodan, or I forget if it's an A or an O at the start there.
I have not.
Is he in Caelid in the south?
Yeah, the festival.
I've seen the festival, but I have not successfully beat that boss. I can't even get within like 40 yards of this guy, which is why I like took off towards the north and was like, I'll come back for you.
So apparently you're supposed to be like level 80 something to take him down.
Yeah, that's about
apparently.
Where I'm at.
Yeah, I found a great cheese and did it at level 45.
Hell yeah. Dude, when these games like they don't play fair a lot of times.
No, they don't.
Actually
they really
do,
don't.
But it doesn't feel like they do. So I'm running around with the Sword of Night and Flame, which is the like ultimate cheese weapon that's got two different.
Oh, how is that?
attacks.
See, I'm actually running around with the Moonveil, which is
katana?
like the yes.
Yeah. Sword of Night and Flame is real good.
So that's like the weapon art is like the laser beam, basically, right?
Yeah, it's got the same laser that you can get as a spell, and then it shoots this like really wide fire arc. I will say this spell on the sword at least will fuck you over. It will, because if there's any sort of elevation, it doesn't angle very well. I've been point blank range and this thing misses somehow. Like it has a really weird hitbox, and it's not a like be all end all win button like some people kind of make it out to be. It certainly helps, and it does oodles of damage, especially to like giants and things that are weak to either magic or fire. But this weapon has some From Software jank on it that I'm not a fan of.
Interesting. Normally, I've been very impressed with how the game's accuracy on the hitboxes has played out. Like,
yeah.
Well, I will say, especially considering other From Software games, like these are their tightest hitboxes yet.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they most okay. So the only hitbox issues I've had has been with that weapon in particular. I've not run into much else.
Interesting. Yeah. So I have to ask, because the first hurdle that I kind of talked about earlier is is it Margit or Margot? Sorry, I'm getting all my bosses mixed up as we're talking.
Yeah, the guy that's got like the cool tail and like the funny staff.
Yes, and then he like pulls out the hammer when he's second phasing.
Yep.
Yeah, like
So that's
the
Margit.
holy hammer of light thing.
Yeah.
So, did you guys happen to explore and find his shackle?
No, but I
Yes,
knew it
I
existed.
did.
Okay, so you got it off Patches, which was a very nice thing to see Patches come back.
I don't know about nice, but it's fun that he's there.
I mean, he always fucks you over in all of these games, so it's like, okay, Patches is here. All right, what's this guy gonna do to me now?
Yeah, right. One of these days he's gonna show up and be like a super nice nun or something.
No, nobody's gonna trust him. No,
Yeah.
nobody will
Never
trust
once
him.
gonna happen.
I would
Although-
laugh so hard.
I will say, I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, so I don't know if it was just me. I guess you could say listening into things, but I do think I heard like an ode to one of my favorite pieces of music in the From series games.
Really? Okay.
In here, there is a point where Alex, you are about to go to, just
Oh,
to kind of basically. Okay, so we talked a little bit before we actually started recording. We found out where each other are. Where each other is. Yeah, whatever, however you want to say that. The next step that you were told to go do, if you remember, I have done that. There is almost like an ode to the Soul of Cinder
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
piece of music, which is like obviously an ode to the Lord of Cinder from Dark Souls 1. So it's this weird, like, I'm not sure if it's there. I need somebody else to hear it though, because like,
Okay. Well, after
for a
the show,
second, I
find me
swear.
those two music clips and we'll listen to them side by side.
okay,
That
easy.
would be super cool. But so
Because
back
it's-
to the Margit shackle thing. Did you
Yes.
guys find that like naturally? Because I only saw it because I saw co-op people use it. I didn't know where it was.
So I spent probably about 20 something hours in that first area. So I just happened to find it. I felt like there was something weird going on with which is when you do first come across me, begs for mercy, and obviously you can kill him or don't kill him. I didn't kill him because I will never kill NPCs in a Souls game if I'm given the choice, because you never know.
My rule
then
of thumb as well.
This game apparently
right?
allows you to like resurrect people, by the way. So if you see
Oh,
somebody
yes,
that
the-
you want
the
to kill,
sin.
there's a way that you can reverse that, I've been told.
I believe it's at the Big Turtle.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
so. I love
Yeah.
Poke Turtle, but go on.
And basically he says, oh yeah, come back here and I'll set up shop. So I was kind of curious and was like, okay, sure. I like reloaded the area, went to him, and then I didn't even know what it was, but whenever there is a quantity of one in a store in a game like this, I will buy it,
That makes sense.
because
Every
you
time.
never know, right? And yeah, and then I just kind of put two and two together, like, oh hey, that's his name. Oh, what does this do? And then
Dave, did you find that thing?
I did find it naturally. However, I am not nearly as inquisitive, so I did not use it.
Okay.
oh man, it makes that fight so much easier.
Now does that work?
So I've heard in retrospect.
Because you fight that guy twice, right? Am I like I fought a guy who had
Yeah,
either
no,
the
it's
same
him.
name?
It's him, and you can use it again.
That's crazy, and it does work again. Oh shit!
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, actually, there's like a cheese right now that where if you use it outside, like right before fighting him, he like his AI messes up and he just stands still for like 20 seconds when you get
Oh,
in there. but-
hilarious! But that fat guy that you were talking about, the like godskin, whatever. First of all, grotesque
Yes.
and cool and like crazy. But I fought him in the like lava manor or whatever, and it's funny
Yeah.
because there's like a point outside of that building that you can walk into, and it'll trigger the boss fight even though you're like not in the building. And so
Yes.
like his health shows up, the music starts, and I just hear him like flipping around up there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Finally, I get in there and I'm like, oh, this guy, he needs therapy. And so I gave him some therapy with the help of two others.
Well, yeah, and so that's the other thing too about this is like they have made it so easy to basically call in other people.
Yes,
And-
which I utilize constantly.
Yeah, you know, so I had a big thing in the first Dark Souls when we were playing it for the Here's Johnny podcast. I didn't summon at all until I got to Ornstein Smog, just because
Yep.
that was basically the stopping point for me when I originally played. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna summon people and let them deal with it. And then I didn't summon for the rest of the game. And then we were like streaming the whole thing over Twitch, and people were like, rah, rah, you know, giving me shit because
Oh,
you
yeah,
don't
of
get
course.
good. That is the one thing I will say I do not like about the Souls community is the whole get good thing.
It's going to be a
Oh.
real quiet or a real vocal minority, I think, moving forward, because this game is going to like hit people that it never did before.
Right, and I'm hoping it does, because like they have, in a weird way, like, well, like I mentioned earlier, this is their most approachable title because it is very easy to call people in.
Yes.
Like extremely easy, and they have these points set up all over the place where if somebody else has like activated that point, they can send their sign to all those points, and basically the first person to call them in, they'll just go. They can be across the map, they could be in undisclosed locations.
So that's how that works.
Oh yeah, like I've done it a couple times where I'm just like, oh, okay, I have like half an hour, I'll just put my sign down, help somebody fight a boss, and I didn't know how it worked at first, so I put it down in front of Margit actually.
Yeah.
And it brought me like all the way to Caled, and I was like, oh fuck.
Because you would touch the little guy, right? The little statue.
Yeah, because so you can either like set your sign down right where you're standing, or you can send it to summon stones.
Oh.
So I sent it to a summon stone just thinking, oh, well, it'll send it to this one because I'm right here.
Sure. That's funny.
No, that's not how it works.
No, when this game fucks you, you fuck back, and that's
like I have
that's how I
have
feel
called
about
people
something.
in. I have called people in the area where I am, and as soon as they land, they just like do their like knife thing and leave me because of
They
where I
see
am.
where they're at, and they're like,
Aw.
not today.
Yeah, it's been rough that way, but whatever. Usually people are like, you can summon them in, and they're there to help, and they've made the whole PvP thing easier for people like me. I don't like the PvP element.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not here for it really. So I have a ring that I turned on when I got it. So whenever I get invaded, it'll just start like summoning people in to help me.
Oh, nice. So I am fascinated by the PvP. I think it's really cool and has been in various Souls games.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where I could see myself getting into that in this one.
Interesting. I mean, I definitely think that this is going to be the one that people, well, like you said, people are going to, this is going to be a lot of people's games that quite possibly look at other From Software games and go, no, not at all. That's not for me.
Elden Ring feels like, I don't know, it's like there's a lot of games out there that are struggling to keep people engaged for long periods of time, right? Like the live service model is fighting with this, and it in a lot of ways it has failed. The examples that I think of that really keep people's attention are things like Destiny and Final Fantasy Realm Reborn, and to me this feels like that in a Souls framework. Like I can totally see myself spending a stream or like an evening sitting down and just helping like lower level players with really tough boss fights and going in and using my stupid laser and just be like, here, I got you, bud, like it's fine. Or building a tank and just putting on that item that always directs enemies to me. And so there's a lot you can play this game like.
One of the things that I really appreciate about the game is all of the playstyles seem relevant, and all of the different options for multiplayer just been so refined since other Souls games.
Agreed.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed is, and I've enjoyed it way more than I thought I would, is the duelist marks instead of getting randomly invaded. Because it seems to me, when I call in people from duelist marks and when I throw down a duelist mark, I don't know, when I get invaded, I always feel like whoever's invading me is kind of like, there's like this, like, I'm going to win no matter how I win. Whereas with the duelist marks, the people I fought always seem like they're going to make it like a fair-ish fight instead of I'm going to run away and stand in the middle of this mob and come what may. Whereas with the duelists, people are like, all right, salute, time to fight. Good to go.
There's a weird like Souls etiquette to the PvP that I think is worth studying in itself. And that's something that I saw in like Bloodborne even, where people will show up, they'll dump all of their healing items, or maybe it was Dark Souls 3 that I'm thinking of. Either way, they'll like dump all their healing items to say, all right, it's just my shit versus your shit, and we're going to do this as fair as we can.
There is always a bow too. You have to put the bow in.
Yep, you got to have some sort of salute.
Healing potions all day.
Oh, yeah. But there's this weird, like, unspoken, because there is, like, voiceover support, I think, in this one, but it's, like, you primarily through gestures and stuff, this, like, duelist etiquette. I don't know how this came about, but it just, like, I guess it just works, like, organically. Somebody did it, and then whoever they were fighting were like, well, I'm just going to do that now. And now it's, like, a common thing, which is how the, like, messaging system plays into effect as well.
I will say that I find the messaging system in this one, just because there's so much more control, I think, over what people can put, to be so much less useful than like Dark Souls 1 and 3.
It's funny you say that,
Interesting.
because I've been totally saved in dungeons by messages.
Really?
Yeah, constantly, man. It's really handy. It's also
I
very
think
funny.
that I think that I have tuned them out after "Is this dog?" and "Tryfinger butthole" 9,000 times.
Or Fort, Night. Like, there's so many good
Or
ones.
comma night.
The one that I saw that was really funny is somebody used the gesture where you like put your hands like open at your sides, like kind of like a welcoming gesture or whatever. And he did that in front of two like mannequins who had very pronounced cod pieces, like armor sets.
Let me tell you about the message I put at the round table. Hold, that is that exact thing.
Oh, great. You fucking
What does it say? It says,
time for
I loaded up my
two-hand or
game because
something?
I was gonna. Yeah, it was behold taking on all at once.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
love
I
that
love it.
system. And it's so funny because it like calls for creativity, and there's this like unspoken language almost that is developed over these games.
Yeah.
It's so weird to me that, I mean, the wording might be a little different, but there's always been like your Tryfinger buttholes basically
For sure.
in Souls games, but it's like there is such like a cultural phenomenon going on with Elden Ring right now that like we are seeing people like play this that have had no interest, right? Have had no interest in like from Soul or from software games before. And I'm actually curious to, do you guys know anybody that like hasn't really had an interest in these style of games try Elden Ring and enjoy it?
Well, that's one of the reasons that we really wanted Joe here. Is Joe is one of the people who bounced off Souls games, not Bloodborne, but Souls games in general. But this one dumped like 20 hours in the first like 3 days.
Yeah, he's always had a trouble with the idea of like specifically the checkpointing has kind of held him back, right? Because in most Souls games, and this is why this one I think is really catching on with people because it's far more forgiving. In between bosses, sometimes in Souls games, there's like 20 minutes of enemies, and you can either try to run around them, which is fairly annoying, or you can fight through them again, which is very time consuming, and then you just walk into a boss arena and get raffle stomped within 5 seconds, and there's no like learning period. Like, I don't know what I did wrong, I just got my ass kicked. But in Elden Ring, half the time your boss checkpoint is like literally right next to the door.
Your Steak America.
That's also
For
very
America?
handy. Yep, if there's not a
Absolutely.
grace, it'll let you like throw up a checkpoint. By the way, I got to the end of a very like crazy dungeon the other night and wound up staring down the barrel of 2 Crusader Knights with no grace down there. And so I was just stuck at the Stake of America for a while, and I tried my hardest, guys. I couldn't do it. I
That's
went and
actually
beat up the original Crucible Knight just to feel better.
one of the things that I threw my head against the wall today for quite some time was some boss called the Godskin Acolyte that is in the basement of a giant tower.
Yep.
And not doing super well. And when I decided I was done with this, I just equipped one of, I think it's the Erd Tree branch or whatever, let it kill me, and bounced out with my like 40,000 souls. And there's so many little systems like that that make this game so much more reasonable,
Mm-hmm.
because every time that I've played, a Souls game, it becomes this, all right, well, I'm going to have to beat this boss because at this point, I've thrown my head against this, my souls are in there, and if I don't do it right, I'm going to lose all of them. And now, like, the game gives me an out?
Yes. For a
And
lot
it
of
gives
reasons.
me an out whenever I want. Like, the open world aspect of it is just one giant out every time I run into something I can't beat.
Yep. And that's how I've
And
been playing too. Like, I've been very exploration heavy in this game. I basically ignore the runes or the souls equivalent, and I just like pick a direction and go. And any path, like any bit of resistance I meet, if there's like 2 attempts on a boss and I'm not making any progress on it, I do exactly what Dave's talking about, is I just fucking leave, right? Like, you can just fuck off. It's great.
Yeah, it's weird that like, I mean, okay, obviously a lot of people are using the Breath of the Wilds, or well, mainly just Breath of the Wild example.
It's a fairly apt comparison considering the release time windows of both those titles and their general structure.
And their general fuck you-ness to the Horizon series.
Yeah,
oh man, I feel
poor
bad about that
Horizon.
game.
They're good games, but
I know, I agree. They are good. They have. I mean, at this point, it's got to be like the worst luck in release dates.
I forget who said it, but somebody was like, "Man, I can't wait to play the game that comes out a week after Horizon 3. That game's gonna be amazing."
Right.
It was
Oh, that's
another
good.
journalist or circles. I don't remember who. Sorry, bud.
Oh, that's good. But I mean, it makes sense because obviously Breath of the Wild was built on this like explore. Basically,
Yes.
if you don't like to explore, you are not going to like Breath of the Wild. And I agree. I think the same goes for Elden Ring because all of its systems like weirdly work incredibly well in like an open world game because like you said, if you come across something you don't like, okay, go the other way, go a different way. You can literally go around bosses if you want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can
Like there
skip
has
whole
been
sections. Like you can go completely around Stormvale and not even bother with that.
exactly like and they've made it possible and I think it's probably the smartest decision they've ever made is to take this like Souls infrastructure and merge it into an open world. I think they did great because I mean, yes, you still have it's still got like its base, the combat still kind of feels the same. I mean, I do think it's a lot faster, and I will say with not having like a weapon degradation system is amazing.
Yeah,
It's
thank
Yeah.
made
goodness.
katanas useful for the first time.
Woohoo! I forgot that was
Yeah.
a system in those games.
Oh yeah, and that's why like throughout the rest of the Soul series, I didn't use katanas because they were incredibly powerful, but they broke so easy.
Huh.
And then because they don't in this game, I'm over here dual wielding katanas, like fuck it, whatever. I'm just having fun with it.
Yeah.
And they've balanced. Well, okay, maybe balance is the wrong word, but they whatever it in such a way that like any build works really. I mean, obviously there's some that aren't going to work just because they, you can't go dual wielding shields and expect to get. Although give it a
What's
week,
Wield
I'm
funny
sure.
is
torches,
I
man.
just saw a video that talks about the viability of dual wielding great shields, but go on.
No, I was just going to say give it a week, and I'm sure somebody will have a beat like that because I think
Yep.
the world record right now is like 38 minutes.
It's down below 30. Distortion 2, shout outs to that guy, has actually just made it down to like 28 as of like 15 hours ago.
My
That's
okay,
wild.
28 minutes. Oh man, what was I doing 28 minutes into the game? Like probably still making my character. I don't know.
I was running down that stupid hallway because I took the key as my gift or whatever, and I was trying to do that dungeon that's got the big chariot guys.
Oh man, I haven't beat that
Nope.
dungeon yet.
And the
Oh,
last
man,
one that I
I
found
just
of that
recently
had
beat that
Crucible
one.
Knights at the end of it, and I was like, God bless it.
What? Oh wow.
Are Crucible Knights the ones that get the tail and the wings and fly
Yep.
around and smack you to hell and back?
Uh-huh.
I found the Crucible Knight on accident in Stormvale Castle, and that was a wonderful example of when you start exploring too much in that game and the game decides to just kick you in the teeth.
Oh, Alex, you are gonna like the next area you have to go to, buddy.
I know. I've heard that they become regular enemies, and I'm like, I dislike these guys. I will do everything in my power to cheese them considerably.
It's weird because I also feel like I mean I could be wrong on this. I don't know 100%. I haven't explored the entire map, but I also feel like something that is missing though is at some point in time in the Souls games, you get to a point where your bosses from the start, I'm thinking like Capra Demon, for example, from the first Dark Souls,
Oh, yeah.
becomes like a regular enemy. And it's just like he's a boss, and then like 5 hours later, they're just everywhere.
It
I
definitely gets
have-
annoying, but I know what you're talking about.
but I haven't really come across that yet, which is kind of nice. It kind of gives
Yeah.
their boss fights more weight because it is still very like that design of an enemy, I guess, is still unique to that boss. And I don't
Yeah.
know. It's a little
There's a
it's
lot
nice.
of unique creatures and weapons and items and stuff, and the way that it rewards exploration is, I think, just because of the sheer like amount of that stuff. And then not only that, but I'm very like mechanically driven in my exploration, so I go around, I collect weapons, and I just like be in the moment, right? But there's certainly like a level that you can do just on lore alone where you go through and you like really dive into the history of this world, which is fairly rich.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed by the amount of lore that they managed to cram in there, and I think that they've running on that theme of like increased accessibility or accessibleness in general. Like, there's people who actually tell you the lore now, like
Yeah.
Roger or whatever. Just
Yeah,
hearing him talk about things is super cool. And I still look at and read the item descriptions because Miyazaki has essentially trained me to do this at that point.
yeah,
Makes sense.
it's I mean, I have it's a little bit of a controversy, but I have certain feelings toward Bloodborne and its storytelling.
That's
And
fine.
I'll leave it at that. But it was nice to go from that to basically Elden Ring, where it felt like, okay, they've improved that too. Like, what haven't they improved really?
It's
Um,
still not the like. So when I came into Elden Ring, I kind of expected a pretty straightforward narrative through line, and granted, there is kind of that. There's certainly more than there was before, but
oh
it's
god, yeah.
definitely not a traditional like storytelling structure at all. And so that can be something that's tough for people to overcome. And I just kind of like say to that, like, just enjoy the world building and the general sense of scale and that sort of thing. And if you're interested in a particular character, like, look for items related to them or like hang out with them. Make sure you talk to people multiple times so that they actually move forward in their quest line, so to speak.
Yeah, that was one thing that it kind of reminds me of Mass Effect in a weird way. It's like, okay,
Oh, yeah.
after every lord or after every boss, you go around that round table hold and you talk to everybody,
Every single person.
every single person, and you talk to them until they start repeating, and then you're good to go.
Yep.
It's one of the things that I've really appreciated about the game is I don't know a good word for it. It's opacity. Very opaque.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't explain hardly anything. Like, even a lot of the people, oh, it's a quest, but I never accepted this quest. I'm just happened to be running in the direction that this person happened to be talking about. Oh, and look, they're here again. And it creates a little bit more of a sense of like a living world than a lot of the Souls games have, just because it feels like these people are moving through the world and doing things. But it also very much decentralizes the story from my character's point of view. Like,
Right.
I guess technically it's because I hit that trigger that, killed that boss, which moved the whole world forward. But in like a real sense, it feels like I didn't really have anything to do with him going over there, you know?
It's interesting because these NPCs, and I gotta say, the voice acting this time around, as usual, I mean, it's always been pretty like intriguing, but like the voice acting for Elden Ring is really phenomenal. They really put some excellent like efforts into the downright just vocal inflections of things. And so that was really cool to hear. But it seems like these NPCs are the more active ones we've gotten out of the Souls franchise. Because it's like Justin is saying, like, you go and you kill a boss or two, you find a cool item, maybe you have an interaction with, like, an in-game NPC fight, like an invasion that sometimes happens, and then you go talk to them, and maybe that'll get you something else. But in this one, it certainly kind of stays in that structure as far as how you progress it. But because the characters are, like, starting in one region and going to a completely other region and, like, actually having goals and stuff, it feels like it's a more lived in world, just like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I what is it, Grape Girl? I don't know her name. I don't know
Oh,
if you
yeah.
guys have come across. I have only found one pair of grapes, so she is still at that like just outside the lake.
I actually don't know
But-
where she is because I've been looking around for her and I find like the old ladies or whatever that read your palms, and I thought that was the same character, but I must be mistaken.
So I know she kind of progresses further north because, like you mentioned, she has her own goal, and I think that is something that Elden Ring does a good job of. It does tell you more of the story. I'm not going to say the entire story because it definitely doesn't do that,
Right.
but it definitely makes it seem like each NPC has like their own goals, their own narratives that they are trying to follow through with. I mean, okay, how to talk around this? There's a point where you get invaded in a place where you don't normally get invaded.
Yes, I have run across this. I am wearing his armor. Yep.
Okay,
I was like,
I-
wait,
I-
wait, what are you doing here?
I'm not sure how to talk about that.
I think David has also gone through this encounter.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. And I probably should have said this at the start of the show, and I'll include this in the title description and everything. But this is a pretty spoiler heavy podcast. I say this as we're like closing in on an hour of recording. But yeah, feel free to talk about the kind of like details of this because it is a cool encounter.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So I don't. Unfortunately, I don't remember her name. I'm horrible with names, and basically,
Wait, it was
if-
a woman?
I believe so.
Uh-oh.
Is it? I don't know anymore now.
Maybe
Oh
it's a-
God, here we go.
Either way, it's like a shadowy kind of edgy person.
Yeah, but you can talk to other people in the world, and other people in the world will start talking about this like madness that takes over these people.
Yeah.
And you have the round table hold. Is that what it's called?
Something like that. It's your base of operations unless you choose to pick a different base of operations at varying points in the games.
Wait, you can do that?
I think so. Because the Volcano Manor certainly feels like that for me in some regards.
Have you done the quests there yet?
I've done a quest where they like have me go kill a guy or whatever.
Yeah, so I will say when you do finish that, they all leave.
Oh, okay. Well,
there's reasons behind it, and like they'll talk to you before they leave. But the round table hold is basically this area that you, at that point in this game, I would say get comfortable.
Yes.
With like, okay, yeah, I can travel here. And like, I remember when that happened to me, I was traveling to the round table hold and I put my controller down for a second and like turned around and was like, well, why am I hearing hitting sounds? What is going on? I turned around and I was just getting attacked. And at first I didn't realize who. I was like, oh, I guess this can just happen in this game. But no, it's cool to see like even the more background NPCs, because like that NPC doesn't talk. You basically have to go around and like talk to everybody in the hold to kind of find out a bit more about her or him. I'm sorry, I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I assumed.
Yeah, I kind of did too. Well, I kind of feel like an asshole.
Either way, I've got their pants now, and I look great.
Oh man, if you can take down Rodan, amazing armor set. Fantastic. It very beefy. You need a lot of endurance.
I look like a damn Death Knight, and I guess this particular set of armor has this thing where like if you kill a bunch of organics, it'll like splatter more with blood. And I got into a fight with a bunch of bats, and I didn't realize this was a thing. And maybe this is something that the game just does naturally that I never noticed. But I was like riding up an elevator just caked in gore. I'm like, whoa, I look awesome.
Yeah. Whoa, is that just that armor? Because I don't.
Maybe.
No, I'm running around with a different set of armor right now, and I realize that all of the things that trail behind me, like my half cape or whatever, frequently just get absolutely coated in blood.
Cool.
I like that. It's like the nice little additions there. That
there's so many fun little details. Let's talk real quick about who your guys' favorite NPC is, because I don't know if I have one, but I have some really cool ones.
Okay. Huh. I have to look up their name.
You can also just refer to them as that guy who looks like this, or that person, or this creature. Like, that's totally fine.
So, I'll let you guys go first, because I'm going to look up their name.
I guess my MVP character...
I'm thinking about it.
My MVP character is two things, aside from NPCs. I just want to shout out these two little guys. Sheep in this game was one of the first things I saw, and when they, like, tucked and rolled like a little Sonic the Hedgehog, I laughed so hard. I was like, I love these sheep. Protect the sheep at all costs. And then I got headbutted by one, and I'm like, wait a minute. Rude,
yeah,
first of all.
They'll turn on you.
The other characters that I really like are the turtles. I am a turtle support bro. Consider me a lord of turtles, because I, like, found a cave that was just full of turtles. There was, like, 30 of these guys. Tortoises, I guess I should say. They're big guys. And, like, in there was a chest that gave me a talisman that, like, increases my stamina recovery. And I found it really early on, and I'm like, this is great. And then at some point, I picked up a turtle shell shield. And so for most of the game, I've been running around looking like a Ninja Turtle, which is great.
Hell yeah.
Love that. And apparently that's something that people have, like, gathered together and started creating builds around, like, having that shell on their back. And I think it's amazing. And Pope Turtle. So there's, like, a bunch of stuff about turtles in this game, and turtles are great. But my favorite NPC might be, like, either Blade or Millicent. And Blade or Blad or Blood or whatever his name is. He's, like, the big wolf guy with the greatsword and the loading screens.
Oh, okay, yeah. He's at the festival.
Yeah, he's really cool. And it, like, okay, so the Dark Souls universe is very much inspired by Berserk, and I highly recommend you check that out personally, Justin, as, like, even a horror, like a dark fantasy horror section of the podcast, because there is some, like, really fucked up things in Berserk. It's a crazy, crazy read.
I've got friends who are, like, really into Berserk, and I've just always kind of, like, brushed off their recommendations of it, but maybe I should actually.
I can send you a video that's, like, why you should watch Berserk. That's this really excellent video essay by Super Eye Patch Wolf, And that might change your mind because he really dives into what makes that special. But so Berserk influence has been all over Souls since the original Dark Souls and maybe even Demon Souls. And so Blade really feels like a Berserk character, if not the main character. And as soon as I saw him, I'm like, ooh, I want to be you. But the way I found him was really funny because I was like walking through that temple and I just hear, "Arr!" And I'm like, that's a guy. That's not an animal. That's just a dude. And I like looked around and got the snap whatever, and so I summoned him and he showed up and I did a little quest with him and we went and killed a guy, and I was like, this is really neat. Like, it was the first NPC I remember being like, oh, I actually want to do your quests. Like, how do I move your story forward? I still don't know a lot about him, but I think he's really cool. And then Millicent is a lady you come across who's like infected with rot, and you can actually like heal her. And she loses her arm, and you have to like go find a prosthetic for her, and she's a swordsman. And so you eventually like fight by her side, and she's just really cool. I really like Millicent. I hope that's her name.
Millicent. I'm looking at a list right here. Do you remember what she looks like?
Well, she's a lady. She's got red hair, I think, and a prosthetic arm.
Okay, yeah, a woman stricken with scarlet rot.
Yeah, she's really cool. Highly recommend that quest series. Oh, and the lady who comes and helps you with the like Grace, the one that shows up that's like your guide. She's like the doll, basically.
Yes. Oh my.
I love her. She's gorgeous, and just everything she says, I'm like, oh yeah, go on, keep talking. Tell me the stories of this world.
For myself, I have to say, I hope this isn't spoiling too much, but Rena, I believe is her name.
Oh, the witch?
Yes.
I mean, you see her when you get the spirit bell.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. You do a lot more with her.
Yep. I was very hesitant to do that quest line because it like takes you in a different direction, but I've been told it's one of the coolest ways to like go through the game.
It absolutely is. It's nice to kind of get more of that because we do, it's a way that From Software is basically like giving you like, okay, yes, here is this witch at the start to like do weird stuff, or kind of like give you. I think she gives you Torrent. Is that?
No, she gives you the ability to summon ashes.
Okay. Right,
Torrent's the one that I mentioned, the woman that meets you in the Grace.
Okay, right. Yes. And then eventually you see her again, and it's like, oh, weird. Okay, I thought you said you were going away, and then
people talk about Ronnie the Witch. Like, there's references to her like being cast out of the academy and stuff. I think that her lore in specific will be probably one of the first like lore videos we see from some of these like popular Dark Souls creators.
I think you will see Ranny the Witch's videos touching on some Dung Eater stuff.
Oh, pee poo 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 man.
Yeah, pee poo 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 man. Other than that, I really like Bach. He's like the first NPC that you really, other than Santa Claus, he's like the first like NPC you come
Everybody
across.
calls him Santa Claus. Confirmed.
I mean, how can you not look at him? Like, look at him.
That's him. That's the Claus of Santa.
Really like. I really like Bach. He's just, I don't know, he's very early, so like to me it was very memorable because we also, when the network test thing was going on, you could do his quest as well. So it was like one of the first things I did, just because I don't know, I liked him. I like the idea of like, hey, this is normally like an evil race, and now he wants you to help take out the chieftain and stuff. And I don't know, it's nice to see that.
That's cool. I don't know if I've met Bach. Is he like one of the fiends or whatever, like little goblin guys?
He's a demi-human or whatever they're called.
Oh, is that the rat boy you were talking about, David?
Yeah, rat boy.
Yeah, okay. I've not met rat boy. I have the ability to mend clothes, though.
Oh, yeah, you can get stuff to...
but he'll do it for free, and he'll become very offended when you do it yourself, which is one of my favorite things about him.
He gets really offended.
Yeah, I remember like listening to David's stream, and he's like, well, Bush is talking to me, and now there's a rat boy, and I'm like, I love this game.
And it's wild. It is the amount of times I have just been like amazed at what I have seen in this game is wild. Like, I don't remember the last time a game's done that.
Yep.
And I think the way I've heard it best put is there's a certain point in Fallout 3 where you come out of the vault.
Yes.
And it's like this huge awe-inspiring moment.
Yep.
This game has like 6 of those moments, like exactly like that.
Yeah, every time I come into a vista that looks out across something and I like see a castle, I'm like, whoa, this is incredible. And they stick that giant Erd tree right in the middle, so you always kind of generally know where you are without opening up your map.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's nice too because again, you can you see something in this world and you're like, oh, I want to go to that. And really, maybe not exactly, but for the most part, this is like the first time you can actually do that, right? Like you see that tree and you really could go to it at the start of the game if you wanted to.
And there are
If you,
funny
like-
ways to get places. Like you mentioned Ronnie. I think the area I was trying to get into yesterday is actually locked behind her quest line.
Oh, probably fighting Radon or Radon. I'm sorry, I don't remember how
I think his name is Radon. He's one of the funniest bosses, by the way, and I'll just leave that on the table.
He's like, you know what? His mechanic is also probably one of the most interesting. Like, I basically that. I'm just gonna spoil it. Whatever. That whole boss fight is based around like you having to summon NPCs.
Yeah, because you basically toss a bunch of them at him, and it's really cool.
Yeah, and and it's like all about like horseback battling, and I mean we haven't really seen that before. And I actually just found out yesterday when I was talking to Larry that you can summon other people.
Oh,
because usually when you summon other people around those like teleport gates, they stop working.
Right.
But apparently that one, it's the only one in the game that you can just like summon people and it'll stay working.
Now, can you summon people and NPCs? Because usually you can do one or the other, or at least you're limited to like 2 characters.
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you.
Also, I've been told to go back over the Radon area when you get a chance, because I feel like there's an optional area tucked away in that spot.
Yes, there is. It's like a dungeon, basically. It's basically people are using it to farm for runes, like AFK.
Nice. Okay.
So,
there we go.
I feel like the whole game is essentially optional. Like, I have done so little of the actual quest.
Yeah, me too.
Like, you've done more than I have, I think, but I'm just over here doing whatever I want, and I think that's one of the big strengths of the game.
But who's your favorite NPC?
I have 2, and I think that they both kind of highlight the opposite ends of the spectrum. So, my absolute favorite character, because I think he's ridiculous, is Iron Fist Alexander.
I was hoping somebody would mention him. He's so funny.
The giant pot of I want to go fight things, and you're like, all right, buddy, come fight things with me. And
he was introduced through E3's stage. Like, they had a guy dressed up on them, and one of the I think it might even been Miyazaki. But on stage, he's like, oh, say hello to my little pot friend.
Man, they are so wild, and I love them for it.
And I like the weird lore around, like, the pot people in general.
Oh, I don't know any of it.
Because apparently they just really like to fight, is what I'm gathering from him. You know, he wants to go there, and he wants to have the big fight at the festival. And then there's also, like, a giant pot later on.
Yeah, like one of the arenas, which I've never gotten to any of the arenas. People are saying that it might be a DLC thing.
So you get to him, the giant pot, and there's just NPC summoning symbols to fight and try to kill. And so, like, there's this whole mythos in my head, at least, built up about these pot people that they just, you know, really, really enjoy fighting and the thrill of battle, even though they're weirdly breakable pot people.
That's super fun.
I felt bad when I first came across them as like just like the enemy type of the pot people, where they were aggressive.
Yeah,
and you break them and they shatter, and there's just
into a bunch of goo, basically.
Yeah.
Yep, little ceramic pieces, and then their, you know, fleshy inside bits fly everywhere.
They're almost like snails, and we meet snails. Well, snailks, but we do meet snails.
Yeah, we do.
And then I think the next NPC that I really, really was... I guess I like the quest line more than I like the NPC, because kind of a quick one-off NPC, we don't see him very much, is part of a quest line down in the Weeping Peninsula. I can't remember his exact name. Is it Edgar, maybe? Sounds right.
Edgar, I don't know, yeah.
What's Edgar like?
So I just think that it encompasses the storytelling and the, like, off-the-screen storytelling of what happens in a lot of Elden Ring. His storyline is very small. It's a storyline with his daughter.
Oh, yes. Okay, I think I know who you're talking about.
Is he like an old guy in like a hut?
Old guy in a castle.
Oh.
In a castle. So you bring him a letter from his daughter, and then things happen.
Yeah, I remember this one.
But then after those things happen, you run into him later, and he has a brand new title, and he's invading your world and trying to kill you. And I'm not sure what happened to this man after I last saw him, but clearly Edgar has seen some shit.
Well, I know if you talk to him after you re-find his daughter.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's basically like, oh, I'm gonna hunt this person down and kill them, but I had already killed them at that point in time.
So maybe he just roamed the world like angry and sorrowful, and that's how he ended up meeting face to face with you. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that.
And so I think that those two characters really embody to me like some of the weird storytelling that's just kind of like built up in this game.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it also kind of highlights to me like everybody says all Souls games are so dark, but look at the pot people. There are pot people into the story. Miyazaki clearly throws things in these games that are just ridiculous.
There's a particular set of humor in this. I mean, there's a character named the Dung Eater, for God's sakes. And have you seen those snake
Right.
guys that like stretch, but they're like stubby looking when you first meet them?
Yes, you are going to find one soon.
They're
And
hilarious.
They might be the other part of the duo.
Oh, funny. Well, apparently there's
Yes.
an NPC one too. I think you can talk to.
Yes.
I got one of their swords. Like I killed one and it gave me a magma sword. And little things like that, I think, make these games infinitely replayable just in general. Because some of the like drops are really cool and meaningful, and so it's just fascinating to like discover something. Right? I think the sense of discovery in Elden Ring is a greater feeling than I have ever felt in any video game ever, and that's a big statement because I've played a lot of video games, guys. Like truly a large amount.
Yeah, it's like you had said. I don't know if we were recording at this point in time, but this is one of those games that you go, okay, just a couple more minutes, and then I'll put it down for the night. And then it's like 3 hours later, and you're like, fuck, I gotta wake up. Like,
Yep.
it's got like a hold on like the whole gaming space, like the whole of the gaming space right now, and like people can't let go.
I feel so bad for anybody trying to market their game right now because so many players are just enraptured in this world.
Yes.
And I don't see
agree.
myself leaving anytime soon.
One of my favorite memes kind of pulls me into that idea of just being enraptured in it. It's a stupid meme, but it still gets me. It's so something stupid like beating my head against a boss for 5 hours in Elden Ring, and then the meme under it is "fuck you, I'll see you tomorrow."
Oh, yep. It's
And like
Yep.
that's exactly, that's a really good meme because that's how I feel about it.
It's like
and
a
I never
daily
get
feeling.
frustrated. Like I
No.
had a buddy of mine was watching me play a couple days ago, and I was really struggling with some super easy boss. It was just one of the like random world bosses. It might have been the 2 pumpkin heads in a little tiny space.
Oh, yeah.
And I really should not have struggled with that fight as much as I did. And I was just cracking up because I was slowly making progress. And every time I died, I just felt like I had made some kind of error. And it just wasn't frustrating because it was a learning experience. And when I came back to it, I'd internalized a lot of that. And the payoff was really excellent.
Yep.
And I think that people who are able to get into this for the first time without doing Souls games before, I think that might be part of what is really attractive to the game is because you can go anywhere. You can kind of go to the areas that fit your difficulty level at the time, and you just slowly build up this skill that pulls you along into a greater and greater sense of accomplishment.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think that sense of triumph or that sense of accomplishment is really core to the experience, and
Yeah.
I think the exploration really makes it more personalized and more individually leveled than the more on rails Souls games.
That's why sitting here and having these conversations are so compelling. And like, even though we're just sitting down now, like a couple weeks after the fact, to record like a podcast that kind of deep dives into this game, like I have had very similar conversations for about as long with like all of my friends, and that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, it's been able to like penetrate this like weird. So before, Souls games were always meant to, well, not meant, but they always appealed to a certain type of player.
Okay.
And this one has had the ability to just like break through into the truly mainstream.
It's really, really cool. I don't think that George R.R. Martin had a big hand in that, but I think having him develop a lot of the lore and then being involved in like the prestige and the legend of how this game was being developed probably helped the general like zeitgeist.
Oh yeah. Oh, big time. Like especially, obviously everybody is talking about still how he hasn't finished Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean,
and how he never will. But
One of those
let's
things,
be
right?
honest, people. It's never gonna happen. Don't keep your hopes up.
My man's out there making money, though. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. He's probably made way more doing this project than he did selling the first, like, couple books or something.
Oh yeah, he absolutely made a killing on it. And I mean,
I hope so, anyways.
there's even like a nice throwback to the Game of Thrones with like, I think it's the Sword of Iron or something like that is what it's called. It's basically like the throne from Game of Thrones, but in a sword
Oh,
version.
I think I have that. It's like a great sword, but it's called like the
Yes.
grafting sword. And you
Yes,
get that
that's
in
the
that
one.
mission you were talking about with Edward. When you kill one of the like beasts at the bottom of the tower or whatever, he gives you
Yeah.
that.
And it's just all the swords melded together, and it looks exactly like the Iron
Yeah.
Throne.
Yeah, there's some fun like little references to that, and just general fantasy works in general. Obviously, the Moonlight Greatsword is in there somewhere. I haven't tracked it down, but I hear it's cool. The Berserk Dragon Slayer sword is really easy to find if you know where to look, and it's like massive and fun. Yeah, this game's wild. So, what would you guys like to see for the future of Elden Ring? Because obviously, I feel like I could play this game for another like 300 hours and still be entertained.
That's a tough question. Hopefully for it to come out in a time when there's no other video games that I need to be playing. I don't know, because man,
I mean, obviously, those arenas opening up for PvP DLC is probably what we're gonna get first. But I feel
Yes.
like they could just take like a continent or something and design like a couple new regions, or like a pocket dimension, or like take us into like a Bloodborne style like nightmare. There's all these different ways where you can just basically create a new area to explore, and I think that would be just as compelling. But honestly, I would like to see Martin release like either a novel that takes place in the history of this world, or release like the lore Bible in some respect for the general public to read. And so I'm really looking forward to any of the like supplementary releases, whether that's an art book or like an official strategy guide, or like I said, some sort of like novel or something. I think would be really cool.
I think
I know
an
that.
art book would be really neat of this game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it would be absolutely massive. But yeah,
Definitely
I
want some
agree.
Elden Ring art for my wall, like a Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Elden Ring steel plate. Oh, that's the shit.
Be amazing.
I'd get that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, right?
Quickly to double back to the other continent idea.
Yeah.
You have you guys been
Yes.
okay, to the underground?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that wild?
That was one of the first things I found. I was completely flabbergasted because that first elevator that you find in the main starting area, like, it goes on for a long time, and I'm like, oh, it must be a really big loading screen or something. And then I'm like, no, it's actually that deep. Like, they do that on purpose.
There's a couple places like that.
Yeah, so
That
I've been
area
told.
had one of the things that I really enjoyed about the game too, was because it is just so opaque sometimes. That was one of the areas where I was just running around doing things, and there's kind of like I don't want to call it a puzzle because I think that oversells it, but like I'm just there doing a thing where I'm like lighting these braziers,
Yeah.
Yep.
and then all of a sudden, it's like there's just a prompt at the bottom of the screen after I've lit a bunch of them, and I'm like, oh, I think I know where that goes because I explored this place, and lo and behold, like
That's where you fight,
there was
like, the
nothing like
ancestral
telling me,
spirit or something. It was super cool.
yeah, and there's nothing being like, oh, like 1 of 8 activated, and you're like, okay,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
just seemed random, but then it made sense.
I discovered that, and, like, I saw the corpse of the thing. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I wonder if you can, like, fight this. And then I saw all the braziers, and, like, 2 of them were lit already, like, leading up to that section. And I'm like, wait a second, didn't I, like, activate 2 things? And so your mind just starts piecing things together, and it results in, like, a really cool boss fight that I still haven't yet to do. But I saw Joe, like, take my idea of that's probably how you get to this boss fight, and then execute it, and then fight the boss, and it was awesome.
And so that I would love to see more of that kind of stuff in an expansion. I think that there are probably some NPCs that their storylines could be pulled along a little bit. That would be fun, but really, I would like an expansion that was just heavily focused on exploration and more of that. I
Yep.
think would be awesome to have.
I think that if From Software, because we've seen them do like gothic Victorian horror kind of stuff, we've seen them do European fantasy, and now like almost a Nordic fantasy, as well as Japanese mythology. I think that if From Software keeps playing around with mythology and like pop culture and such, there's an opportunity for them to like explore Egyptian deities and such. Like, that would be super cool. Or they could do, like, full-blown aliens. Like, there's a lot of opportunities for this particular studio to make just, like, wild, crazy, cool things. But I would also like to see them take that and go back to their roots of Kingsfield and give us, like, either a first-person mode or something for this game, or, like, completely do a new Kingsfield that is first-person, that's got that, like, really meaningful exploration. Like, how cool would that be?
That'd be super cool.
Or another Armored Core. Like, I want more from this studio, and I want just, like, anything they're willing to put out.
Them's the rumors, right?
Yeah, that's what people say, is they are doing another Armored Core, but you know how rumors go in the video game industry.
You know, Silent Hill is coming, like, next week or something like that, right?
Yeah, and has been for, like, 12 years.
Yeah.
It's a little off topic, but you should go grab an Armored Core if you have it, especially, like, some of the PS2 ones.
Yeah, okay.
Some of the wildest, like, mech combat in video games. It's really plotting, and I think it tries to be hyper realistic. And I don't think Miyazaki even worked at FromSoft at the time, so it doesn't have any of his touch on it.
Yeah, because I think it was Dark Soul or Demon Souls like his first game that he worked on, right?
That's how I understand the story went. Is like
he was like given it because they thought it was going to fail already or something like that.
Yeah.
And he like completely changed it
And
around.
he completely retooled it. Yeah,
that's the narrative I've heard. I would love to sit down and read a book that really dives into like the history of these games. And I collect a lot of video game books that do just that. And I hope that there's a Dark Souls one out there. There's bound to be.
My understanding of him is like the studio itself is that he's so involved that that's one of the big reasons that they don't really make multiple games at once.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I think I remember him saying in an interview something along the lines of like the world is so curated in these games that he will get into the point of like, well, I think that the slope on that hill is wrong. Like you should go back in there and edit it some, and like just like really your biggest micromanager.
Yeah, again, I wouldn't be surprised to find out he's
the CEO. So like he's sitting there CEO managing you like 3 levels above who should be really talking to you,
man.
You know?
There is definitely a possibility and a high likelihood that a lot of these games were developed with like really ridiculous crunch culture, which is something we've preached against the need for, and a lot of studios have been actively fighting against. We have pushed for unions and such. So I fully want to acknowledge that a lot of these games that were like so infatuated with very well could be made off like the blood, sweat, and tears of people who have really put a lot of like sacrifice into it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw like the Glassdoor rating image basically that was going around about From Software last week. Oh yeah, I'm assuming you know what Glassdoor is.
Yeah, it's like a quote-unquote transparent way for people to complain about their jobs.
Yeah, it's got really bad ratings. I'll leave it at that. I'll see if I can find it and I'll send it to you, but
wouldn't surprise me. And I'm like, the more I learn about the video game industry, the more I'm like, well, there's more toxic and disgusting behavior. That sucks. I hate that. Like, which is why I tend to like, I really avoid covering and talking about and playing and like quote unquote celebrating many of the games that like a lot of just regular people actively play and love. So like, I totally get it. But I just hope that a lot of these studios will start to embrace healthier work cultures.
Good luck.
That's the dream. Yeah, that's the dream. But
I hope so. Regardless, Elden Ring, good. I think if people really like enjoy this talk and would like to see another episode of Elden Ring or Dark Souls coverage or a particular feature or something, I've actually got a couple feature like article ideas in the works that I think will be really cool and might even turn into videos or something. But if you basically like what's going on here and want more of this type of content, let us know. And that's something that you could even like pitch to Justin too, or if you want to see Dave stream on Twitch rather than just in Discord, like let us know, because I think there's a lot of potential.
That sounds like blasphemy. I don't know how to do any of that nonsense.
It's the same thing you're doing, just you click a different button.
I can't learn new buttons. That's not what this is about.
Me and Joe would even come up and set it up for you. But regardless, I mean, if people wanted to get a hold of you, Dave, on the internet, is that something you want to share, or do you want to plug something in specifics?
No, I don't actually really have a good way for people to get a hold of me on the internet. So,
plug something you like on the internet then.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. What do I like on the internet? I
recommend us a creator or another cool game or a sweet book or something.
Ooh, I know that it's completely out of like what I've been playing and what we've been talking about, but my other love is stupid survival games.
Okay, yeah, like The Forest and Rust and such.
And my recent one has been, it's an old one, but I mean, still an alpha as every single survival game is, right? Project Zomboid has been
Oh
really
my god!
ridiculous.
Somebody else who plays that game.
It's so good. And like
It's-
their team is tiny and the game is actually awful maybe, but I also love it. I'm not sure where I actually lie on it, but
so it's weird. The first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh, it's like a zombie game, but in The Sims."
That's what I thought when I saw it.
So I was
for the
like,
first
"All
time.
right, cool, why not?"
That's like
Yeah.
popular with kids, I think. Like that's another one of those games I hear like middle school people say in the same breath as like Roblox or Fortnite.
really?
Yeah, like there's this
Oh,
weird
man.
like revival of Project Zomboid because I think some TikTokers or something play it.
Somebody bought it for me. I was not even on my radar. Somebody bought it for me, and since then, it's been a game that I've been super engrossed in, and it actually hits one of the same things about, like in this game, I feel super accomplished. In Elden Ring, I feel super accomplished when I do things. And Project Zomboid has getting infected and losing your character, and so I feel the same way in that. It gives me a sense of accomplishment when I succeed at what I'm doing.
That's cool, man.
And it's something I enjoy in games in general. And they're a small-ish indie team, and so I think that's really neat.
Hell yeah! So Project Zomboid again, if people want to check that out. Justin, let's talk about where we can find you and
Oh,
maybe one more
jeez.
thing that you want to plug.
Which one are you talking about?
I mean, just like something cool that you're into aside from Elden Ring. I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but yeah, you can find me writing weekly content on DreadXP or releasing weekly podcasts over at the Here's Johnny podcast. I do contributing writing for Forever Classics. I just had a Ghostwire Tokyo preview come out.
Yeah,
I don't
we
know
did
when this is
mention
coming
that,
out,
but you
so-
do like send out the preview is already available. Like
Okay.
that's on the
Do you know
website.
do you know when this is coming out?
What this
Like
episode? Probably at least a week from now. Either way,
After the
by
20
then
after the 21st?
we can schedule it after the 21st if you want to talk
Okay,
about it.
because I just got an email that I actually have to forward to you. But
Okay,
yes,
cool.
and I will have a review of Ghostwire Tokyo
Yeah.
as of the 21st.
Yeah, you do contribute to us whenever the moment arises. Because basically, whenever you like started doing games, you kind of came to me and was like, "Is there any way I can like publish with you guys?" Or I don't know. Regardless, we ended up talking to get your stuff on my site, and it was just like cool because there's a lot of things that we both play maybe outside of our niches. Because you're all
Yeah.
the time doing horror, and so I was like, well, if you do something that's not horror, if you want to like do a written version of a review, like you're more than welcome to do it. And so you covered Resident Evil Village when it came out, which is fun, and then
God,
now
I love
you've
that
got
game.
Ghostwire Tokyo.
Man, you know what game I am weirdly really looking forward to digging into though? I'm not gonna lie, this is gonna be my plug.
Okay.
Everybody go check out the most, I guess, as the internet says, Chad Final Fantasy coming out
Yes.
in Stranger of Paradise.
Yes, I just have been bugging Square Enix for a copy of that. I think it's actually available at the end of this week.
So I know if you pre-order it on PS5 or Xbox One, I think you can actually start playing it tonight.
Yeah, that sounds right. I just did an article about it on our website, but there's a
Man.
demo for anybody interested about this.
And it is just like the most bro-ish Final Fantasy I've ever seen. Like Alex and we're both obsessed with Final Fantasy. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, Final Fantasy 9 for life. Like,
Oh, of course. And that's how
yeah,
you
we
and Larry
agree
got to
on
be
that,
friends,
like-
if I'm not mistaken, like because of
Yes,
the
it is.
interest in Final Fantasy.
yeah, absolutely. And like this is gonna sound weird, but like obviously I know it's developed by like Team Ninja, and I forget who else is working.
Probably Koei Tecmo. It's like Square Enix and Team Ninja primarily.
Yes, yeah. And I don't know, there's just something about it when a Final Fantasy says fuck that I'm like, all right, I'm in.
Yes.
I'm in. And like, so I've seen a couple of cutscenes where like the boss, you know, the like evil guy is going on like his long tirade, and the main character Jack just like interrupts him and is like, I don't give a fuck, and will attack him. And like
That's
something
amazing.
about like he like embodies the player, and I don't know. I'm just I don't care if it sucks. I
That's
haven't
kinda
read any
like
reviews.
Yeah, that's
But
kind of like
I'm here
Azura's
for it.
Wrath. There's a button where you can interrupt like bosses,
Oh
so they'll
my
like
god.
be these big monologues, and you can just punch them.
Listen, Azura's Wrath is probably one of my favorite games from that generation.
Hell
It's
yeah,
just like
it's cool.
it's so wild and like surprisingly not a lot of people have played it, which
Yeah.
is crazy to me. But I mean, it is basically just like a QTE simulator from start to finish. Like you don't actually like play
No,
like
not really. Some of the final boss fights can get kind of like involved as far as like player
yeah.
inputs are concerned, but for the most part, it is a like
But
visual feast for
it's
the
like Dragon Ball
eyes.
Z. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
you are playing an episode or like an arc of Dragon Ball Z, and it is amazing.
I
Like,
want that character in Street Fighter so bad.
oh man, I want them to re-release that game. If
Or Marvel vs. Capcom.
so, unfortunately, they have Azura's Wrath on PS Now, but it like weirdly doesn't work for some reason. I don't know. Some of the
Huh.
inputs don't like line up. It's probably just like a lag or something. But
Sure.
if I ever find a way to write about Azura's Wrath, I will definitely be writing about it because
You're more than welcome to on our site because I've got a copy
I
on
mean,
my
don't
shelf
tell
and I
me.
look at it every now and
Don't
again.
tempt me because like I will gladly talk about that game for hours. It is wild.
We do cover games in its entirety, including fan games and retro stuff, and so if
Okay,
people are
we'll
interested,
talk.
that's
We'll talk.
that's
We'll
something
talk.
that we can do.
We'll talk because on like every time I bring up Azura's Wrath, everybody's like, "Man, fucking, what's that?" Like nobody. It's kind of like 3D dot game heroes.
Oh, sure, yeah, that's another one
Yeah.
that's fun that I keep an eye
Yeah,
out.
it is a level 5, basically ripoff of Legend of Zelda. You
That's
can't find
cool.
it anywhere.
No, it's
Anyways,
really
yeah.
expensive, which is why I advocate for emulation wholeheartedly.
Yeah, me too. It's okay. We're on the same page. I agree. But yeah, those
the
are the
one
things.
more
I'm into.
thing that I want to drop into people's lap is I think that where do I want to go with this? I've been watching Twin Peaks, and that's all I'm gonna say. Twin Peaks is fun and
Yes.
stupid and weird and just like really involved, and it's been a lot of fun for me and my girlfriend to sit down every now and again and watch a couple episodes and like look up nothing about it. Neither of us don't know anything about this world or the storylines or anything. We just know it's weird and influential. So we're like going back to all these different, like, she reads a lot of classic sci-fi to try to determine sort of the origins of a lot of things, and she watches a lot of like Star Trek. Star Wars is her favorite thing. And so we jumped onto Twin Peaks. We're like, I don't know, halfway through the second season or something, and it is so much fun. And it's something that, like, once I'm done with Twin Peaks, I kind of want to go into X-Files because I have a similar knowledge of it, which is to say, absolutely nothing. I don't know anything about X-Files.
It's okay. I'm right there with you with X-Files. Twin Peaks is amazing. The second season is weird on your first viewing because it comes across so much like goofier.
Oh, sure, yeah. Protect Lucy at all costs.
Yeah.
And I think there's
it's-
something in the donuts. Those
Man,
are my
it's-
theories. But also, I'm
Man,
coming
that
off
show.
as somebody who watched like all of Blood Sea, which I had you guys watch, and there's something wrong with the coffee cakes in that or something.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Yeah. Are you gonna go watch like Walk with Me in Fire and stuff too? Which is
Yeah,
the movie?
we plan on watching the new version of Twin Peaks or like the third
Mm.
season or whatever you want to call it, and then the film. Like
Yeah.
basically, we're gonna try to find like the chronological release or whatever.
Interesting. No, that's a good series to get into.
It's a fun little project.
I would pair it perhaps with like a Deadly Premonition.
See,
if
I
you
thought
will.
about that. Yeah.
It's weird because the story in Deadly Premonition is very Twin Peaksy, but that's basically it.
Right.
Like you obviously like it's
I'm hoping I'll get flavors of that maybe with like Alan Wake 2,
oh man.
which is on
Alan
the
Wake 2.
horizon.
Yeah. It's gotta
Or
be
and the
years
other
away,
reason
right?
that I want to do that too is because I've always liked the idea of Control, but I've never sat down and played it. So I'm hoping that like with some of the X-Files-y, Twin Peaks-y sort of background, maybe I'll like be really in the mood for that game or something and sit down and play through. Because I like things that enhance experiences, which is why one of my next features that might actually take like a lot of effort is I kind of want to look up things that not only influenced potentially the Souls-like games, but also enhance them if you are aware of them or interact with them either before or after playing these games. And so the immediate example is like we saw somebody on Twitter talk about how there's a lot of never-ending story inside of Elden Ring. Me and Joe sat down and watched Never-Ending Story, and they're absolutely correct. So if you're playing Elden Ring, man, watch Neverending Story on, I think we either caught it on Netflix or HBO.
To circle back to Control, another fantastic game, by the way. Like,
Sure.
Absolutely amazing. There is a moment in that game that if you have not had it spoiled for you, you might not even know it's been spoiled for you. That is one of the like wildest, out of the blue, but like kicks so much ass moments in gaming.
Ooh, fun.
Like Oh,
I need to
I
pick it
hope
up.
it hasn't been spoiled for you, but let me know when you like decide to dive into it, because that might be the time where I replay Control as well.
Right on. All right, guys. Well, I've kept you around for about an hour and a half, and so I think we should probably put a cork on this particular podcast. So, first of all, thank you all so much for hanging out with me and talking about such a wonderful game and such a cool franchise. And it has been absolutely a pleasure. So, until next time, I hope everybody has a chance to check out foreverclassicgames.com. And if you want to send us an email, shoot us one at theforeverclassicpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, we also mentioned where you can find Justin's work. And of course, we've got one more things that you're more than interested to jump into. And if you want to talk to us about that, find us on the Discord. Until next time, I'm Alex. This is Justin and David. We've had a rip-roaring time talking about Elden Ring, and we hope you do too.
All right, have a good evening, everybody.
Yeah, have a good night, everybody.